Hello everyone, I am Brianne of Soul's Compass Healing. I offer evolutionary astrology readings, Akashic record readings, energy readings in my services, which you can check out on my website, linked in the description below. You can also follow me on Instagram for spontaneous creative shares. I am meeting with you this evening right under this Virgo new moon, and I am sure feeling the Virgo energy. Wow, my creative process with making this video has been very much within the spectrum of the Pisces Virgo axis, and it's been a journey, and it's starting to drive me a bit crazy, so I'm just gonna make the video now. This new moon occurs shortly after Pallas Athena is exactly in opposition to Neptune, and this new moon is in opposition to Neptune. This new moon is trine Uranus, who's retrograde Taurus, Jupiter, who's retrograde Taurus, and also Pluto, who's retrograde in Capricorn. I wanted to highlight those things and also mention that in evolutionary astrology, the moon's nodes and the planet Pluto are the lens through which we see everything else in the chart. And so everything that I'm going to be talking about today is through that lens primarily, as well as the main aspects that I just mentioned, more that I'll mention later on. So yeah, there's a lot of different shades and colors being blended into this. Another thing that I would like to blend in is the fact that this is the last cycle before we have another eclipse. So the next new moon is going to be a solar eclipse. And I started making these videos during the last solar eclipse, which occurred on April 19th of this year. And I didn't plan on that at all. And I would recommend that you go back and watch that first video. It's really to the heart of what I'm all about, and yeah, it's not perfect, but it was my first shot, and I'm proud of it. What I want to tie in here is the recognition of healing being cyclical in nature, healing occurring in spirals. And so every year we have 2 eclipse seasons. This year it felt like 3 because this summer was extremely intense and ground shaking. But what I really want to hone in on is that Virgo is the sign that we associate with, priestesses, with healing, with that spiritual discernment, right? And so if we are to get real about that, then we ought to get real about the impact that eclipses have, and that they color the forthcoming 6 months, right? And so we're just entering month 5 of this last eclipse that we had. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick different planets and pieces that in my opinion have really carried strongly a resonance into now. I mean, they all have. I could go on and on, right? But I won't. So Venus, she was the ruler of the North Node at the time of this eclipse. She was in Gemini, and she was pushing this meeting forward. I think now is the time to reflect on what Venus had to say to you these past 6 months. Reflect on how well you listened. and to reflect on how well did we as a collective listen to voices that are often outspoken, silenced, and oppressed. I also want to speak to I'm going to come back to Venus. This is messy. My notes are messy, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. Okay, Pallas Athena was in Cancer, squaring the new moon at the time of the last eclipse and opposing Pluto. And this is what I called the tug of war between soul compulsions and ethics. What ethics ought to be considered when creating safe space? That question is really important. She is conjunct the sun in this upcoming full moon that we will have in 2 weeks' time. I'm talking about Pallas Athena, and she plays a significant role in the upcoming eclipse. So I bring forward this question again, and I will always bring forward this question because it is a question that can be answered now and can be answered again differently in X amount of time into the future. Venus took us on quite the journey these past few months, didn't she? She went from ruling the North Node to the South Node and going into the underworld through her retrograde in Leo journey, which she is now just rising up from. What has transpired in your relationships? Relationships has been a theme, in case you didn't notice, which you did. With yourself and others, how has your relationship with beauty shifted? How about your relationship with pain? What did you feel in your heart then? And what do you feel in your heart now? What's the difference? And can you measure the evolution? Juno. Venus and Juno have been traveling together for the last wee bit and will continue to throughout this cycle. And at the last solar eclipse, Juno was also featured. And I asked if in our partnerships and relationships, so I'm talking about coworkers, spouses, lovers, whoever we relate to in our life, friends, do we have the breathing room, Taurus, to dream new dreams and to create structures of safety in anti-oppressive ways and to fine-tune dynamics with a caring and attentive approach, one step at a time? Our relational experiences over the past 5 months will expose the truth of the answers to these questions. So we just need to inwardly reflect and be honest with ourselves. And perhaps that honesty already has arisen and leveled off. And the necessary changes already have been made. I would like to talk about retrograde planets now, kind of segueing into the rest of my talk here. A lot of planets are retrograde right now, and I think so often when that happens, what can sort of be, the word on the street is now is not the time to make any decisions. Now is not the time to take any action. Well, here's what I have to say about that. An aspect of retrograde is reflection, yes? Another is liberation. So if in your reflecting, you identify the chains that bind you, then why would you remain there longer than is necessary? If you're, of course, able to. I understand that sometimes there are very legitimate reasons as to why people cannot break the chains of what they're bound to. Reflection can bring clarity, especially with Neptune retrograde, who is opposing this new moon. It's likely to have experienced a crisis of disillusionment these past few months. When this occurs, it's not like we make knee-jerk reactions and changes overnight. It's not like we wait for all the planets to station direct either. Taking action towards liberation is evolution. So don't stall just because somebody says now is not the time. I'm going to segue here into the Mercury retrograde, which is actually going to be completing tomorrow. Mercury stations direct. The opportunity to organize, label, compartmentalize that which has become so clear to us has been given and will continue to this month. For example, identifying what parts of our relating patterns are our own responsibility and what parts aren't. So again, I use the term relating patterns a lot in these talks because it's a concise, generalized statement that speaks to the fact that everything is relational and we are humans who have habits and patterns and ways of doing things. And so our relating patterns are the ways in which we relate to other human beings, to our environment, to the plants and animals and everything else, right? We have these ways about us. And just like a drop of water, creates a ripple effect on the surface of a flat lake, and another water droplet of water does, and then those ringlets sort of like interface with one another. That's what's happening when we are relating with one another and with our environment, is those relating patterns are intersecting. They're intersecting between us. And so sometimes it can get a little hazy when we are tasked with determining what is my responsibility in this and what is theirs. And another way to put it, a very Virgo way to put it, would be to say, what is in my control and what isn't. For example, and this is like a super duper simple example, but if someone treats me in a way that is disrespectful, however I want to, label that, I can do something about it. Like I can say, I feel disrespected. It may not stop that person from behaving the way that they are. I have no control over that. What I do have control over, though, is removing myself from the situation so that I'm no longer exposing myself to being disrespected. Now, I also need to add the caveat to that that's not always possible for everybody in every situation. So I don't want to say, very nonchalantly that walking away is an easy or even possible task, because it isn't always that way. There are very, legitimate reasons, as I said before, as to why that might be the case. Okay. I would like to talk about this new moon now. We're getting into it. And Virgo, the thing that everybody always quotes Jeffrey Wolf Green, everybody. Some people quote Jeffrey Wolf Green when he is speaking about the Virgo archetype, that he used the analogy of the centipede. And if a centipede is thinking about what leg or foot number 64 is doing, then it might have a hard time walking. Something to that effect. And I'm just gonna riff on this, and I'm gonna run with this centipede analogy. Let's see where it takes us. What opportunities arise when the centipede isn't preoccupied with what foot is moving and when? Feel the ground, explore, navigate the path according to the terrain. It can simply be a centipede. Just like how when you watch a dog and it's just like, that's a dog doing dog things. Might it be possible that the centipede would trust its bodily wisdom in combination with its ongoing assessment of its environment? How would this impact the movement, the direction that the centipede takes? And so I'm just going to put a little pause on the centipede talk for a minute and just bring in Mars. Mars is also, so Mars is ruling the north node of the moon right now. Mars is trailblazing our way to the next new moon, which is a solar eclipse, like I mentioned. Mars will be waxing and forming a conjunction and then waning with Persephone, Lilith, and the south node of the moon, all in Libra. Interesting. Very interesting. This trailblazing effect that Mars often brings, right? Because it's a speedy planet compared to most. And so it often just trailblazes through this, this meeting, this conjunction, and that's what it's doing, in this shifting time of one energetic closure of an eclipse season and the beginning of another. And eclipse seasons are always kind of indicate some sort of change in direction. And this one, I think, movement, direction, trailblazing is quite highlighted. And so, going back to the centipede, I would like to bring in a example, because this example that I'm going to use is so widely applicable. Pretty much everyone struggles with this. So let's just say that centipede believes something. Centipede believes I am not worthy of love, which may seemingly come from an accurate interpretation of reality. For example, my parents didn't cherish me. This has the power to be the lens through which the centipede interprets reality. This also is stored in the body. Perhaps all the legs on its right side are overworking, overachieving, and all the legs on its left side are limp or frozen. This centipede might find itself walking in circles, right? Repeating the same trauma loop over and over, hoping to get different responses, different results. And there's no shame in this. This is a part of being human. We are humanizing the centipede. How would healing occur for this centipede? Does it involve disillusionment? Yes. That lens through which it sees reality has to come off. While this idea may be easy to conceive, integrating it beyond a concept is challenging. How can the centipede turn down the dial on its right side and wake up its left side? Through coercion and control? Hey, left side, get into gear. This right side isn't gonna do all the work anymore. I think not. Somatic therapy is one of the most gentle and effective approaches for healing. So I really want to expand on this a little bit under this Virgo new moon. Virgo is an earth sign. Virgo is the sign where people typically say things like, my body is my temple. My body is so wise. My body communicates to me. My body does so many things without my conscious awareness. This is also where health crises can arise. And I've been, for the past bit here, certainly the last moon cycle, I felt very pulled to talk about trauma. And in this video, I do as well. And to talk about trauma in the body somatically. And so just to give y'all like a super duper quick kind of overview is like, when an animal, let's say a deer, is grazing in the grass in the evening, it's just having its munchies, and it hears something. It hears something rustling in the bushes. That deer is going to shoot its head straight up and it's going to look around, right? So it's had this engagement of what we would call being startled. Okay, so it's in a alert mode. It's no longer in chilling munchy mode. And if the deer recognizes that there's a cougar behind the tree over there, the deer is going to very quickly assess that it's probably not going to survive fighting off the cougar, and it's not going to play dead either, because the cougar already knows that it's alive. So it's going to try to outrun the cougar, right? And these are our typical trauma responses: freeze, flight, or fight. We humans also have fawning. And so this is what the deer does. The deer actually ends up outrunning the cougar. And the deer finds a quiet place, lays down on the ground, and as it gets up to reconvene its chill out munchies session, it shakes off its body. It literally shakes off the trauma of that event out of its body, out of where it was placed somatically. And animals do that instinctively in the moment right after something happens. Now, we as humans live complex lives. We don't know how to do that, and we don't always have the opportunity to do that in the moment or even after, even if we do know how to process the trauma that is being held in our body. So yeah, a lot of us have like favorite parts of the body where the trauma goes to live and gets stored there. So, you know, sometimes people complain like, oh, I have a really bad right knee, or you know, my left shoulder is just always out of whack, or whatever the case may be, right? These are parts of the body where the actual physical cells are carrying that response. In last video, I talked about the physiology of the brain and how chemicals flood the system. Yeah, that actually changes the cells. And the way I'm certainly not an expert in this, though I am very passionate about it. So I do want to share that, like, that trauma will always, and this is coming back to what I started the video talking about, nature and healing occurring in spirals and in cycles. And this is how trauma continually happens, because it's trying to close the loop. And so yeah, that is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about trauma in the body. And when I'm using the word somatic therapy, there are somatic therapists out there who are incredible at their job. If you're interested in learning more about this, reach out to them. I would love to get to a place where I can offer it as a part of my services as well, but that's not right now. I mean, it is, but not to the extent that an actual specialized somatic therapist would take it. Okay, so what would it take then? What would it take for our humanized centipede friend to heal? It takes feeling into the frozen left side and the restlessness of the right side. It takes building capacity for change, which starts with creating safe space. And the safe space part is so key, so key. You can't do trauma work without that foundation being established first. If it's not there, don't do it. It will be useless, if not damaging. Over time, the right side may find more ease and relaxation, and the left side may come online. Slowly but surely, the centipede will be walking in wider and wider circles as it goes through the cyclical process of healing. The body needs to feel safe on all levels, including cellular, to feel and be worthy of love. It will take as many repetitious capacity building cycles as is necessary for the doubt to dissolve. A refinement of the inner knowing versus believing occurs over time, one step at a time, one experience at a time, until a simple and gentle birth of I am worthy of love, or whatever the knowing is, arises as a truth from within. So, do you see how this process started from a belief, I am not worthy of love, and arrived at a knowing, I am worthy of love? That is gold. This is Venus in her third and final square to Jupiter in Taurus, which is exact in these days following this new moon. Feel that. The truth of our relating should be pretty clear now. Venus will also be having her third and final trine to Chiron in these next days. Take notice of what stage of healing the wounds of our relating patterns were 3 months ago compared to now. I just want to speak a little bit more about Virgo and the healing journey. I want to use the analogy of leaves in the fall, how it is such a joy to watch them slowly as the days pass on by, changing their beautiful colors. And this speaks to the healing journey, because when we are approaching the healing journey with the gentleness that is somatic therapy, for example, there may not be, lightning bulb moments or, super magical unicorns riding rainbows and just like everything is just suddenly just wow. The healing might happen slow and subtly, just like the changing of the leaves. With this knowing, Mother Earth knows what is now and what is coming and what time it is, what season it is, and she does the appropriate thing at the appropriate time. She knows when the leaves, when it's their time to die. She knows when it's their time to bud in the spring. And I think that another thing that people often associate with Virgo is this purification process, or this cleansing process, cleansing oneself of anything that is going to hold it back from spiritual development. And I feel like people have taken this, the collective has, thanks to the distortion that has occurred during the age of Pisces, this has been taken to all sorts of wrong levels, like really harmful levels. And I just want to bring it on back down to nature, and say that sometimes going outside and standing in the rain can be the cleansing that we need. And, what needs to be cleansed, I don't know, to each their own. But we don't need to chastise ourselves over this, folks. Okay. This is getting long, but I have one last note. Mercury opposing Saturn in Pisces, and quincunx Chariclo, who's still in Aquarius and still retrograde. As Mercury goes direct and opposes Saturn, let's take time to be in our bodies, to notice what season is here now, and to let it be as it is. Alrighty, folks. One last little tidbit. This new moon is in a third quarter square to Medusa. And I just want to say that. I'm going to be watching that. I'm going to be putting my feelers out for however this manifests throughout this month, throughout this cycle. And I hope that you do too. And if you have any reflections on her now or throughout this cycle, drop a line in the comments. I would love to hear it. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Okay. Take care. And I will speak with you in a couple of weeks regarding the full moon. And then we will be meeting under the eclipse season coming up. So enjoy this new moon in Virgo.